Welcome back to my channel for a special edition of the weekly Human Design Transit Report. And today is Thursday, October 5th. And I'm doing it this time because the new transit starts on Monday. And I want to give you a heads up before it starts. So if you want to see about what transit we're in right now, you can go here and watch the transit report that I released a couple of days ago. Or you can stay tuned for what's going to happen on Monday. So we've got another shift in the energy because we are moving into individual circuitry. We've been kind of in logical circuitry for the last couple of transits. We did have a little bit of tribal in the one that we're happening right now. But we are moving into individual circuitry, two different sub-circuits of individual circuitry. But before we dive into the specifics, let me just remind you that individual circuitry is it's here to be different. It's here to bring change. It's mutative is the word that we often use in human design, which means it's here to create mutations, to create change. And because of that, it doesn't fit in. It kind of sees things differently. It'll sees the world differently, have different perspectives. You know, people who have a lot of this in their chart, as I do, tend to think differently than other people do. Just our perspectives are different. And this is where the evolutionary impulse of humanity runs through the human design chart, because it's through individual circuitry that the new ideas come in. And so it's highly intuitive and in all different kinds of intuition. If you want to find out more about that, you can go and watch this playlist that I have on intuition. There's a bunch in there about individual circuitry and the different types of intuition that are available in individual circuitry and in general all over the chart. There's actually quite a few videos in there if you are interested in intuition. The sun is going to be lighting up the gate 57, which is known as the gate of intuition in traditional human design. So the 57 is in the knowing circuit, and the knowing circuit is highly, highly, highly intuitive. With the 57 and with the knowing circuit in general, you just kind of know things. You didn't learn it anywhere. You didn't read about it. You didn't watch it in a video. Nobody told you about it. Nothing like that. It's just something that you know. It's a knowingness that you have. And this kind of knowingness runs pretty counter to the way that most of us have been trained to look at what's valid. We've been pretty heavily trained to look at things through an analytical lens, through a Western scientific lens, where we can do, studies of things, and we can replicate it, and we can gather data about it, and we can prove it, and, like that, right? Not true with the knowing circuit or individual circuitry at all. It's not something you can go out, you can't fact check it. You can't go find it on the internet. It's just something that you know. And the 57 is also known as instinct in quantum human design because it is on the spleen. And the spleen, let's remember, is the center for instinct and intuition, the immune system, and right timing. And so the 57 does help us to understand about timing. It does have a splenic fear, as all of the gates of the spleen do, and its fear is the fear of the future, which kind of makes sense, right? If you're talking about a center that is about timing and it's intuitive. So the splenic fears come from instinct. And, we want our instinct to get us out of the way of a moving bus, right? Or to keep us from, heading down a road where there's flooding or things like that, right? And in that case, we might get a little bit of a fear energy that goes with it, like, don't go there. But it should be pretty short term, and you should be able to move through it. If you have this ongoing kind of fear of the future, just kind of resonates with you, that is the energy of the 57 gone sideways, right? It's kind of in its disempowered aspect where it's in a fear state. But if, just look around and really have one of those moments of truth with yourself to say, wait a minute. Is that true? Is there really anything for me to be afraid of? It's like, okay, sure. There could be bad things, harmful things, dangerous things, scary things, uncomfortable things, unpleasant things that happen in the future. I mean, yes, of course that could happen. But is that a reason to be afraid of the future? Like, is there something specific for me to be afraid of? right? And even if there is something specific, it's also good to give you one of those moments to be like, right here in this moment, if I look around, I look at the doors, I look at the windows, I look under my desk, right? Is there anything right here, right now? No. Okay. So let's just stop being in fear. There's no reason to be in fear. So if you notice that the fear of the future comes in while the sun is lighting up the gate 57, that's a little practice that you can do. And you can do that with any of the splenic gates if you notice that you're starting to feel some fear with any of the ones that, defined or not, because you could also have them with ones that are not defined in your chart as well. And when you know how to handle that fear of the 57, in traditional human design, it's known as the most intuitive gate in the chart. I'm not sure if I agree with that or not. I don't quite know how to calculate that because I think the 43 and the 61 are also super intuitive. So these are all in the knowing circuit. There's lots of intuition all over the chart. But let's just acknowledge that in traditional human design, that's what it's considered. And when it's freed from that instinctual fear, it can be highly, highly intuitive. So while the sun is lighting it up, really open yourself up to any downloads that are coming through, new awarenesses, new senses of what's possible, new potentials that show themselves, insights that come in where you just go, wow, I'm not sure where that came from, but that's interesting. And don't discard it because you don't understand it. Don't discard it because you don't know where it came from. Don't discard it because you don't know what to do with it in the moment. Receive it, honor it as this divine guidance that is coming to you through that knowing circuit, right? It's plugged directly into super consciousness, into that creative intelligence of the universe, and you can be receiving guidance from that. If you embrace it, believe it, act on it, see what happens. So a lot of times when I talk to people about how intuitive they are, they'll share with me that they don't really know what to do with it. It's like, I don't know if I should believe it. I don't know if I should do anything. It kind of doesn't make any sense with the rest of my life, which can happen if you live a pretty left brain life and then you just start getting a bunch of intuition. It can be like, what is going on? I'm not really sure. I don't know what to do with all this, right? So if that's true, I get that. But you know what? You can just write in your journal. Right? You can just write it down in your journal. You can talk to a supportive friend, somebody who is open to hearing that. You could share with each other about downloads that you get because everybody's going to be influenced by the sun lighting up that gate 57 during this transit. Then the earth is going to be lighting up the gate 51. The gate 51, the gate of shock in traditional human design, or the gate of initiation in quantum human design. So the 51, I have both the 57 and the 51 defined in my chart. So it's another energy that I'm well aware of. And I would say that it is definitely one of the gnarly gates. It's known as one of the gnarly gates in the chart because its energy is super strong. It's in the individual circuitry. It's half of the channel of the shaman or the priest or the priestess, or the channel of initiation in quantum human design. And so it's a very powerful energy. And the way that I understand it is, so in a disempowered expression, you receive shock, right? Shocking experiences happen to you. I know this happened to me a lot when I was a young person, I received shocking experiences, or I experienced shock in different situations, right? It was kind of how I was attuned to respond to things. That's a disempowered expression of the 51. Then, if you like to shock people, or if you gain power, or you gain control, or the illusion of control by shocking people, then that's kind of the power over or the shadow way of expressing that 51. Okay. And people do this all the time, right? They say shocking things to try to throw other people off so that they can then be seen as somebody who's more powerful. A lot of times this is done totally unconsciously. It's not like people necessarily sit down and think of doing it, but it happens. I also know that I have done this in the past, not really realizing what I was doing, but I did do that. But then its awakened expression is initiation. And the shock really fits with the initiation when we can mediate the shock so that it's not so shocking. Because initiation into higher consciousness pretty much always involves, for the most part, breaking apart lower frequencies of energy, and sometimes identity forms that go along with it. Because when we want to evolve and we want to expand and we want to grow ourselves, a lot of times we have to break up old patterns. We have to break up ways of thinking. We have to break up our expectations and our assumptions. And that can be kind of shocking, right? Disruptive, at any rate. I would call the 51 disruptive. And one of the reasons that traditionally we have a lot of ritual around this idea of moving into higher consciousness, right, is to provide padding and a container so that when things are breaking down, you are being held in that process so that the ego can kind of fracture and break apart so that it can grow into something different, right? Like a snake shedding its skin, for example, right? A little more dramatically, like the phoenix, right? That burns up and then comes back again, right? All that kind of energy where something has to break down for something new to come through. So the 51 is about that. So I know for me, I use the 51 all the time when I am mentoring clients, when I do readings, when I'm working with my one-on-one clients. I use the 51 all the time, but I always try to use it with a soft voice. Because just the energy of breaking up patterns is disruptive enough. And you don't have to add a lot of intensity to it. You really don't. And it's better if you don't, because then people can receive it better. So what the earth is inviting us while this is lit up is to ground ourselves in our ability to initiate ourselves first into a higher consciousness state. Now, this is what I do with Kundalini Yoga every day. So I teach Kundalini Yoga because through Kundalini Yoga, we can elevate our consciousness, we can elevate our frequency. And that's why I have a bunch of, if you go to the playlist here that says Gifts for My Audience, there's a bunch of Kundalini Yoga in there. There's also a bunch inside of the Becoming Sovereign Quantum Retreat Center, which is free for you to join. And there's a bunch of Kundalini Yoga in there, as well as a bunch of human design. And there'll be Feminine Sovereignty is growing in there now as well. But at any rate, because we can initiate ourselves into a higher frequency, and it does break up old energy. It helps us to release old emotions. And sometimes it's disruptive. Sometimes it is. Because energy, like when it breaks up in your system and then it's getting released, it can be a little disruptive, right? I mean, there have been times when I've had tears, there have been times when my whole body is shaking, right? But it's awesome. Because it's all in the service of being able to elevate one's energy and one's frequency, and to initiate yourself into higher consciousness. So that's definitely something you can do for each other. But if you work with a coach or a mentor or a guide, this is a really great time to work with them and accelerate your own experience of going into higher consciousness. And if you are someone who already works with clients or participants in programs or groups or events that you do, where you are serving this transit is going to be super helpful for you while you're doing that kind of work. So just know that you might also have other people who are expressing shock. It does happen. And you might also experience people expressing fear of the future. It does happen. But now that you know how these energies are, you can be more in command of what's happening for you inside of your own system, but you can also have more compassion for others. And you can also be an agent of change to help people to be able to move into the higher frequency, the more awakened frequency of both of these super potent gates. I hope you'll come and join us in our Becoming Sovereign Quantum Retreat Center and Global Community. It's growing a lot, and it's going to be growing a lot more because I am going to be building the Feminine Sovereignty collection inside of that. There's already a lot that's there in terms of human design, and there'll be more coming in soon. And, I do live events in there every month. We just did our Ask Me Anything last week. We'll be doing a Kriya practice next week. And there's lots of resources in there and wonderful conversations. So I hope that you will go ahead and join us. All right. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.